Okay, so welcome to Anthro is Fun, class number 5, part 2. We just finished talking about lineality and kinship, and now we're going to talk about forms of marriage. And the third part of this class is a discussion of how scientists view religion. Okay, and when last we left our hero here, we had finished talking about how one of the ways that you acquire kinship is through marriage, and then the obvious question is, so what is marriage? Just to recap, I'm Victoria Leo, and let me actually go give you the info. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Okay. My email address is actually victoria@soaringdragon.biz. And I've got a YouTube channel, Human Bio numeral 4 Everyone. And of course, you can find me on Facebook and Pinterest and all kinds of other cool places. I am a transformational healer. I get people from where they are to where they want to be using hypnotherapy, power of the mind, to do incredible transformations of the body and the mind. I can make chronic pain go away, for example. All right, so more information, go to the website. And I'm also an author, so you can find me under Victoria C. Leo on Amazon, and I have a number of wonderful online classes, and you can get information on them at soaringdragon.biz. Go to webinars/events. Anyway, so here we are, and I am going to get back to where we were. That's probably a clever way to do this, but I don't know what that clever thing is. So, sorry, I don't want to get you sick. All right, married. What is marriage? It's an economic partnership of some kind or another. Maybe not an equal partnership, but it's an economic partnership, and it's a partnership between individuals. It's a partnership potentially between kinship and clans and families. It doesn't necessarily involve sex. It usually involves reproduction. It's a relationship for the purposes of reproduction, although not necessarily those two people. But there may be reproduction. There's almost always reproduction that then becomes a member of that family. So, and very importantly, in every culture on earth, there's ritual, there's sacredness. When you make a public commitment to another person, this is going to be my partner. It can be a limited duration partnership. It can be a 1-year try it out. It can be a 5-year contract, or it can be entered into with the intention that it will last forever. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will, but that would be the intention. Okay, and I can't emphasize enough that sacred character doesn't necessarily mean religion. It just means sacred means special, set apart. I'm not just having sex with this person. I'm not just hanging out with this person. I'm making a public declaration that I wish to have an economic partnership with this person, etc. Okay, now, forms of marriage. Polygamy simply means there are a lot of one particular sex. Okay, polygamy. Two forms, polygyny. Gyn is the Greek word stem that means woman. Gynecology, for example. And it's very popular in sub-Saharan Africa, some of the Arab nations, and some Asian cultures. Okay, they tend to be, and remember, we're talking here about how forms of marriage as well as forms of kinship are driven by the subsistence, the form of subsistence. Okay, polygynous cultures are almost always patrilineal, which means your kinship is through your father, you belong to your father. Women generally have a lot less power. Pastoral societies, which means ranching, animal husbandry, agricultural societies, because polygyny generates a lot of children, and farm families put their kids to work at age 3 doing something. You know, you don't sit around playing if you're a farm kid. There are certain seasons of the year where there isn't as much work to do, right? The middle of summer where the plants are growing, you know, you spend a couple of hours a day weeding, and then that's it. You can go play the rest of the time. But sowing and harvesting, it's all hands on deck for 2 months, okay? All right. The problem with polygyny from the female perspective is that this is generally a family in which you're competing for your husband's attention, which is competing for power within the family, and you do that by producing more sons. And sociologists and anthropologists have seen that women in polygynous families have much less power vis-a-vis the males in the family, and they are much less likely to vote or run for office or you know, get advanced degrees and have jobs and earn their own money and so forth. And a lot of men, when they read about polygyny, they go, ooh, you know, wouldn't that be great? Lots of women to have sex with. And I keep telling them, dude, depending on how bad the ratio is, up to 70% of the men in that society don't have any wife at all, which is not good, because that means that you've got all these men that don't have as much of an investment in going to work every day. They don't have anybody to. Human beings need somebody to take care of. You know, not that, you know, that the people around you are helpless, but children are. Children need support. They need support for a long time. You need support. You need emotional support. And having a wife or a husband, right? But in this case, we're talking about having a wife to tell your troubles to is so good for your health in any culture. This is just human biology, okay? Societies that have an abundance of young men who are not married, will never be married, can't form their own households, those are societies where you've got more crime, you've got gangs, and you've got the power. People in power are looking for wars to have an army to do something with these young men. Okay, so it's not so good, actually, to be a man in a polygynous society. So polyandry, which is a woman with multiple husbands, frequently a woman will be contracted in marriage by a group of brothers. Okay, and she will be focusing on, you know, making clothes, making butter. You know, she's producing food, and she's probably doing horticulture while the men focus on pastoralism, or the men are hiring themselves out as Sherpas or something of that sort. Okay, these marriages tend to be harmonious. Polyandrous marriages do tend to be more harmonious than polygynous. And it prevents population growth, where polygyny fuels population growth. One of the reasons why sub-Saharan Africa can't rein in this runaway population growth is because of polygyny. Women are desperately trying to get more power in the family by having more children. And men want more and more and more children because they've got people who are going to then vote for them, more sons who are going to vote for them in the kinship enclaves. So and then there's monogamy. Okay, it's interesting. It's interesting. Monogamy is the most common in the modern industrial states and also in the most simple cultures, right? Hunting and gathering, the foraging. Our ancestors were monogamous for most of the history of our species, 300,000 years. Right? It's only recently, with the accumulation of wealth through agriculture, about 8,000 years ago, that a power elite started, grabbing more of the women, basically. Based on cultural anthropological studies, monogamy wasn't for a lifetime. In the early foraging states, it was generally long. You would stay together long enough to get your child to weaning age, which was age 3 or 4. When they could keep up with the group, then it was okay for mom to have another baby, because mom can't carry, is not physically capable of carrying a baby and a 3-year-old. Because dad is carrying all the rest of the goods. A population needed to be kept under control through whatever means possible, and we discussed this in another class. But yeah, okay, so some interesting forms of monogamy. Husbands who are not actually physically men. An older widow who had resources could hire, married in a marriage ceremony, a younger woman to do the traditional female work. The older woman is referred to by the children as father. Now, where do the children come from? Well, the younger woman, finds some young man, unmarried, that she fancies, and he gets her pregnant, and the children then belong to this 2-woman couple. No expectation that there's going to be sex between the 2 women, and she's referred to as the husband, she's referred to as the father. She may or may not put on male dress, but everybody knows that she's the husband in this family. Lots of marriages where spouses don't live together. A woman, there's a couple of cultures where a woman stays with her birth family and sneaks out into the bushes, arranges things with her husband to, have some, marital relations. And then the children know who their dad is. It's not that he doesn't love them, but he doesn't live with them. Okay, they live with their mom and their mom's clan. Okay, and the man and the woman are married. The expectation is they're not going to be having sex with other people. They just, the Matra clan doesn't want to take on his support, so he stays with his Matra clan and just produces children. Anyway. Among the various plains cultures in North America, there was a third gender someone that we would consider very spiritual or very intuitive, someone who in our culture makes a living as a spiritual healer or a spiritual whatever. And I'm not talking about all the charlatans out there. I'm talking about the genuinely special people. In these cultures, the child who had that special nature was identified or identified themselves as a two-spirit. They were fully male and fully female in spirit, in their soul. They were a full human being, although they were physically male or female. And then they could marry, with someone of whatever sex was going to generate children or not, whatever. Because two spirits had a tendency to become official or unofficial shamans. The healer, the person who understands the spirits and can speak to spirits and can predict the future and so forth and so on. So that's an example of a third gender. There's males, there's females, and then there's two spirits. There's another culture in which the belief is that sperm with the male essence, right? They're not looking at it under a microscope. The male essence doesn't just start the child, but the child needs to be regularly nourished so that it grows and it grows healthy. So I can imagine, you're a pregnant woman and you're having a hard time of it. It's like you've got to have all this sex, but and we're talking a couple of times a week, not 6 times a day. But in order to nourish the child, a man will ask his 2, 3, 5, whatever closest friends and kinsmen to be co-fathers of this child and nourish the fetus with sperm, with male essence. So at whatever intervals are agreed upon, she is having these nourishing sessions with her husband's buddies. From a practical perspective, it means that if you're a man and you die either before the child is born or after the child is born, until the child is grown, you've got other men who are obliged, because they are co-fathers, to not only, bring presents, for the kid's birthday, but take care of him, take care of his mother or her mother, right? So children are never abandoned because you don't just have one dad, you've got multiple dads. It's wonderful from that perspective, right? How do you acquire a spouse? Well, the modern American ideology is, falling in love, which is actually a short-term emotional thing, which if it graduates to genuine lifetime or, long-term love is wonderful. And the people who get married when they're still in that state of euphoria are that's the problem. But anyway, generally by family negotiation. And it's what your family did and does, because this is still facilitated introductions are still the norm in Southwestern Asia, like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Your family goes looking for somebody who is going to be compatible with you, someone who's got the same goals, someone who's got the same personality, someone who's easygoing because you're easygoing, or someone who's got, a little more get up and go because that's what you want. You want to have a spouse who's going to get up and go, and he or she is looking for someone who's going to be calm and who's going to keep them from going the workaholic route, right? Whatever your goal is, the people who know you and love you best can find the right person. You fall in love, you like the person, and then you build a strong love as you build a family together, children or not, but building that price. And I talked about this. I forgot where I talked about this, but let's talk about it again. In some cultures, there's the idea of a bride price, because the woman is going to go join the man's family. The woman's lineage, her kinship group, loses an important valued member. So his kinship group pays the woman's kinship group some money based thing, sheep or goats or service. The groom could work for the wife's family for a set number of months or years, right? You're getting not only your daughter's labor, you're getting your son-in-law's labor for, I think in the Bible, somebody worked for 7 years to get a wife, right? And that bride service is common in pastoral societies. And dowry, the European dowry idea was money that was given to the couple to start their life together. And what would happen is they would live with the man's family. So the man's family would be supporting the couple, and giving them a home, buying them a house, and giving them those kinds of resources. And so the bride's family would give the bride a nest egg to start life with. Okay. And that nest egg remained hers in the event that she's divorced or becomes a widow. Okay. The dowry belonged to her. In India, this has become a very abusive practice, with unscrupulous families murdering the daughter or threatening to murder the daughter unless the bride's family gives them more money and more money and more money. And because in India, in traditional Hindu society, not only do you lose your daughter, but you have to pay a dowry. So the man's family gets another productive member, and they're not going to support the bride's family in old age. So it's completely lopsided male situation, which is why something like 100 million fewer daughters have been born in the last 20 years. In India and China. Serious sex imbalance. Okay. Parents in Bangladesh, which is not killing their daughters, they don't have dowry issues there, are being paid bride price for daughters that are then smuggled across the border to be wives for very grateful husbands. Families, the whole kinship group gets together to pay a bride price to get, Joe married. Excuse me. Cousin marriages. If you've got a broad mating population, first cousin marriages are not an issue unless there's some specific disease that runs in a family. And I've already talked about cross cousins and parallel cousins in the kinship discussion. Just to recap, your parallel cousins, who are considered equivalent to your brothers and sisters, okay? Your parallel cousins are your mother's sister and children, and the children of your father's brother, okay? So the same sex, right? Father's brother, mother's sister, those are your parallel cousins. They're equivalent to your brothers and sisters. You can't marry them. Cross cousins are, in fact, are great because, you know everything there is to know about them. You're not like marrying a stranger. And because officially they're not part of your kinship group, you can go ahead and marry them. there is an incest taboo that is not culturally ingrained. Of course, it's also culturally ingrained, but it seems to be very much a biology. Okay, now because chimps, bonobos, and gorillas shy away from their mothers and their sisters, males. The way that they prevent incest is the way humans prevent incest, which is one sex or the other goes away, right? The boys stay with their father and then import wives, or the girls stay with their parents and import husbands, right? So the husbands are going to be unrelated. And there was an interesting situation with chimps, the not the bonobos, the standard chimps, Jane Goodall, etc. The way they do things is the males stay put and the females leave, except that there was one really high-ranking mother, really high-ranking in the female hierarchy, and she had a couple of daughters, and they just didn't leave. They were the daughters of this queen bee, and so they stayed, but their brothers of the same mother avoided them. Even when they went into heat, their brothers stayed away from them. And all the males, the adult males who were special friends of mom, who were likely dads, also stayed away from them. And nobody was telling them. So, okay. In human culture, the people that you grow up with feeling like brother and sister with, like in the early Israeli kibbutzes, people never married the folks that they grew up with, who were raised in this communal crèche thing, right? Now, so it seems to be, there's some kind of biological thing going on with the people that you grow up with at an early age are, they're imprinted on your do not touch list. However, human beings in different cultures, have different definitions of incest. For example, Leonidas and his wife Gorgo, one of the great love stories of all time. They were deeply devoted to each other. Gorgo was the daughter of Leonidas's much older half-brother. So she was his niece. Herod the king married his niece, his brother's child. So, and that was okay. Okay, so different definitions. Now, and remember, with the Navajo born to clans and everybody else who has that type of kinship, somebody who is a member of your mother's born to clan, and I think it's something like, if it's within two generations, two levels, if you've got a woman who is in your born to clan, and a woman or a man who's in your born for clan, a woman who's in your born for clan within 2 generations is off limits. They're your sisters. Okay, now there's thousands of people, including people you've never met, but they're your sisters. You can't fall in love with them. So that's why the first thing that you do when you meet somebody, at a dance or something like that, is you say, "Hi, I'm Joe Schmo, born to the river runs backward clan, and born for the Green Turtle Clan, so that both of you know what your kinship situation is. So if you need to negotiate how many generations ago, you know, did you have somebody in my Born To clan, then you can work things out and like not pursue, you know, you can dance with her, but don't kiss her. One of the things with the Egyptians is, in order to prevent a proliferation of potential heirs, and because the women of the family were considered sacred reincarnations of the goddess Isis, you could only marry someone, you know, one of the sacred women. So, and usually you weren't marrying your full sister, you were marrying your half sister, or somebody who was actually a first cousin. Anyway, that's what was going on with that. Okay, summarize. And in our next class, we're going to talk about spirituality and religion. Not whether you're in favor of it or you like it or you don't like it, but simply how scientists study it.